Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cap and Gown. I'm Rachel Phillips-Buck, VP for Student Success at Ferris Resources, joined today by Matt Boisvert, our president. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Rachel. Great to be with you. Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, last week I got to interview you.
Yeah.
What?
I don't want to do that again.
It was hard.
It was very stressful. I'm happy to have my background back. I'm happy to have my articles in front of me. So you were very kind to do that, but let's just keep it like this from now on. Okay.
Deal.
Okay. Good deal.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. There's lots of different ways that you can listen. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can follow us on LinkedIn. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcast. So whether that's Spotify or iTunes, Apple Music, follow our show so you'll get notifications when we release our new ones. Did I miss anything? I don't think so.
I mean, just looking at Spotify, all of the Cap and Gowns, it's kind of amazing,
Yeah.
Going back.
And Rachel said we're now on X.
Yeah, formerly known as Twitter. Yes.
X. Z told me that we're on X. That's why I got confused on that one. All right, Matt. I would like to remind you about our theme for the year, which is curiosity, which has been really fun. We've been posting our Google searches so that you have a little idea of what goes on here. So I'm going to do mine, and then you have some curiosity facts for us.
Do I get to do mine?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying. And then we'll do State of the Union. Okay.
All right. Sounds
Okay.
good.
My 4 Google searches. Number 1, rules for Uno Attack. That's because I was playing Uno Attack with a 6-year-old, and she is feisty and was sure she knew the rules, and I had to Google it so we could agree.
So do you play Uno Attack like where you can multiply?
No, this is actually it's a very long story, but this is basically like a machine where you push the button sometimes, and sometimes it spits out 25 cards. It's serious. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2, how to buy an Apple computer for someone else.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Matt spent all morning yesterday trying to buy an Apple computer, actually for our guest today, Allison Ash, who is doing work with us. She's in Chicago, so we had to buy it in Texas, but we had to get it shipped to her, and it's a very long story, but it was a nightmare. We figured it out. Good job, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3, haluski, which I told Z that I had leftover cabbage, and she's like, make haluski. And I was like, okay. And I did make it, and it's delicious. It's butter, cabbage, onions, kielbasa, egg noodles. It was fabulous.
And a lot of butter.
A lot of butter. And then the last one is, I don't know if I'm going to tell you guys this one. The last one is Stardew Valley, fruit bats or mushrooms. My daughter and I play a game called Stardew Valley, and I had some questions about choices I was making in the game. So, okay. What about you?
Did you make the right choice?
Fruit bats is the way to go. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Good to know. You've saved me a Google search there.
There you go.
All right. Well, yeah. When you look at what all I was Googling, of course, the same issues with how to get a laptop to a different state. They've made this very difficult.
Yeah.
But April Fool's was yesterday. So yesterday, Office April Fool's pranks, which is pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
3-point line, women's NCAA.
Oh. Yeah.
Wow.
Google that, y'all.
Wow. Okay. Leg of lamb sous vide, which now you know what I did for Easter. And this one, I just Googled garden hose stuck to spigot. And I mean, it was, so apparently like when you buy a garden hose, be careful what kind of connector you buy, because if it's aluminum, it can actually like basically get welded.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to hacksaw that thing off.
Good to know.
Yep.
All right. What is your curiosity for us today?
Hey, so in your lifetime, this is Brain Candy, it's National Geographic. In your lifetime, you will yawn some 250,000 times.
Wow.
You will eat more than 2,000 pounds of pizza if you like.
Wow.
You will read more than 1,000 books, which you're going to be at like 10,000 books.
1,000 this week.
And you'll brush your teeth for about 43 days.
Wow. All right. There you go.
There you
Good
go.
to know. All right, Matt. Well, that brings us to the State of the Union. All right. I'm not going to mention FAFSA today, except to say that the same department who really wants us to change, like who's behind all the FAFSA rigmarole, right?
Yeah.
They are also asking for some new information from colleges and universities. They want them to report this data by July 31st so that they can do this. What is it called, Matt? It's like the value of college, right? So they're trying to let prospective students know about the value of college by calculating whether graduates of programs can afford their yearly debt payments and whether they make more than an adult in the state who didn't go to college. So that's the goal. They are requiring, though, colleges to give this information 2 years worth of data by July 31st. The colleges are like, hey, could you maybe not, because you've made this other mess that we're dealing with? Could we just have a minute? Could you delay a little bit? The National Association for Student Financial Aid Administrators is like, this is a significant institutional undertaking. Yeah. Could we please have a later deadline? They started asking for the later deadline in December. There's a couple of problems. So one thing is they're saying they've done the calculation. The department estimates that the first round of reporting due July 31st will take about 5 million hours across the 4,518 institutions. So Matt, you did some math on that.
That's like 1,000 hours. That's like half of someone's, in a year, someone's full-time job. So,
yeah. Okay. So it's going to take a lot. Also, they haven't defined yet what they're asking for. So it's like, it's coming. We'll let you know. You just need to make sure you get it to us before July. They requested this deadline a long time ago, actually. And the officials brushed it off and they were like, the FAFSA was not going to have anything to do with this. What they said in their response was, we note the new FAFSA system and associated processes will become operational and available to institutions in December of 2023. So we're not going to move the deadline on this one because you will have already dealt with it and it'll be over. So there's that.
Well, one more thing to add to the growing list of mandates.
Just hardships. It's just hardships especially for smaller schools, right?
Smaller schools, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is really interesting. University of Michigan created a grade dashboard that's embedded into Canvas. It's called My Learning Analytics. They piloted it for about a year and now they've pushed it out to all these other universities, but it's a student-facing dashboard that basically allows students to see which files, videos, and other resources are accessed most often by students in a course. So you're looking at all the resources and you're like, oh, everybody is looking at this document. Perhaps I should look at it too. Or maybe this one would be helpful for me to see, which I really love.
Interesting, yeah.
Assignment planning shows students, allows them to set minimum course grades and creates a bar showing current grade, maximum possible grade, minimum goal grade. This is all stuff that when you're an advisor, you're teaching your students to do, right? What do you have to get on the test and what does that mean for your GPA? All of that. So I think that's awesome. And then also grade distribution, where you fall in terms of how other people are.
Super helpful.
Yeah, visualization of that, highlighting average and medium grades. They can also see the class specific for class or specific for assignment. So lots of students are using this. They really love it. It's saying it changes the way they study. It changes their confidence in course materials and how they plan their activities. 6 in 10 students said it was influential for studying. So 60%, not great. But 89% said it was valuable for their course performance. And the grade distribution chart is the most viewed element, with 87% of student users accessing it. Not cool?
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great use of technology for improving students' experience.
Yeah, and the next thing that they want to do is incorporate AI in it, so that it can help distill the data down further into profiles, like by demographics and that sort of thing. So I think it's super cool. Okay, one of the schools that we serve, McPherson, we have talked about this school before. There's a great article in Newsweek about not rushing to cut niche programs. And McPherson is highlighted in this article because it's a little school in Kansas. It's got like 800 students. They decided a decade ago that they were going to have students restore a classic car and enter it to compete at the world's most prestigious car show, the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. This school has a 4-year, what did you call it, Matt? It's a
automotive restoration program.
Automotive restoration.
It is so impressive. And so Jay Leno, who's a huge car aficionado and loves restoring old cars, historic cars, has donated cars to them that they've restored. It's just a really neat program.
Well, it is the only program of its kind in the United States. This past August, students from McPherson realized the dream. They exceeded everyone's expectations when they entered a 1953 Mercedes-Benz 300S, and they finished second in class. So this article says the magnitude and importance of that moment cannot be understated. It would be the equivalent of a college club team taking a silver medal at the Olympics, because you have all these people who have tons of money and this is what they're doing. And these students entered their car and won second place.
Yeah, let's see this. Bailey has a picture of this car.
Yeah, isn't that gorgeous?
So beautiful. I mean, second place.
So awesome.
Really awesome.
Really, congratulations, y'all. That's cool.
What I love is that they really found it is this unique program, and now they're getting recognition for that. I love that.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, kind of related. There's a new series hosted by George Mason University, which is about how to be independent, manage tasks. We know this as adulting, right? I think this is super helpful because we've been having a lot of conversations about like basic things that you should know how to do as an adult. That where do you learn those things? I told you your daughter the other day was like, where taxes? When do I learn about that? Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, you should have a class on how to do taxes. So this department created a life skills series called Now What? It comes out of a survey that they did in 2023 where young adults are really lacking in practical skills. So 2/3 of millennials and Gen Z cannot change their car oil, which I can't do that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. You know,
but it seems like maybe you should know how to.
I could watch a YouTube and But.
Okay, half are unable to change a tire. I do know how to change a tire. 46% are unable to tie a tie. 42% don't know how to jumpstart a car. 41% don't know how to sew up a hole. 22% don't know how to file taxes, right? So they were just like, hey, we're going to take all of these things and we're going to put it in kind of a experiential learning class where they're teaching them things like how to use tools in a household toolkit or how to use the grill. This says 18% of young adults don't know how to use a grill. How to find health insurance. Yeah. Matt, it made me think about, you remember we did an article a couple of years ago with a school that was giving students advice on leasing agreements. That you could bring your leasing agreement and they would be like, yes, this is what this says. This is a good idea. And then they also were doing approval. Like, we know this apartment complex. We looked at their leasing agreement. It's a good one. Just little things like that. Super helpful, right? All right.
Well,
The
what would you throw in? I mean, so they've got a list of adulting like tips but what would you throw in? Like, what do you think?
Well, you have to know how to roast a chicken.
Okay.
You have to know how to make one good dessert.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
I don't know what dessert.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, your son knows how to make apple pie. He's got it. He's got it
Yeah,
down.
thank you.
Yeah.
I've got your recipe. I've never done it.
Yeah. Okay, this last one, listen. This last one, I've left some time for it because this is levels, okay? This is a crazy town article that I'm about to tell you about. First of all, you know that schools are employing software to keep students from cheating on proctored exams. So some common software, HonorLock and Proctorio, I think is how you say it. There's one other one, but basically, if you're doing online a test, this software like says if somebody else comes in the room, it's doing eye movements to make sure like you're looking where you should be looking. You have a lockdown browser. Like there's just all of these different ways that we're trying to keep students from cheating.
Right.
Because it's increased dramatically coming out of COVID, right? Like it's just people are cheating. Okay. So that's
and a lot more online classes, right?
Right.
And even an in-person class, students are now taking tests online. So
yeah, exactly. Okay. So that's the first level. The second level is at Polk State College. One of the faculty members was like, hey, we think students are cheating all the time. This is in Florida.
Yeah.
So they went on and they found cheating companies. For example, what's this called? It's Exam Rabbit, where you can go and you can pay for them to take the test for you. And she was like, I want to see if that really works. So she did an undercover operation where she paid Exam Rabbit $250 to take this exam for her, right?
She paid them for an A, right?
Right. So you can choose. You can like, don't overshoot. You're a C student, just pay the $100 for a C, right? Okay. So then the cheating company uses a VPN and it goes into her computer while these proctoring things are on. And she has to pretend, she has to like look at the screen while they're controlling her computer. And she wants to know whether or not they can tell, like if it works, right?
And she's already informed her professor. I mean,
she's faculty. Yeah. Okay. So she's doing this thing. And lo and behold, it does work. She gets an A. It takes the exam for her. It isn't flagged for cheating. She's like, this is incredible. Okay, we have to figure out what we're going to do about this. Well, she paid $250 with her campus credit card, and there was a little glitch, and it didn't go through immediately. Okay. So this company, Exam Rabbit, sends her an email and is like, hey, you didn't pay for your A. We got a notification. It did not go through. If you do not pay us not only that money, but more money, so now they're blackmailing her, we are going to make sure that you get disqualified from your school. We're going to publish the video of you on YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, and Instagram. She did this anonymously, but before they started using her computer, she had to show her ID to show like, it's really me taking this thing. So they had her name and her student ID. So they're like, we're going to destroy you. All of her stuff on Facebook was locked down. They started posting on her friend's Facebook, hey, your friend cheated on this exam. And if she doesn't pay us, we're going to tell everybody. Here's a picture of her cheating.
Wow.
So then the faculty member was like, hey, not only is cheating not a good idea, but also students, you have to be warned that these companies will blackmail you.
Right.
And Matt, you and I were saying, like, in this case, they're threatening to blackmail her because they don't think she paid, right? There was a glitch in the payment. But there's no good reason they couldn't just blackmail you for the rest of your life. You pay $250 for your test, and then they're like, we have video of you cheating for the rest of your life. We can always pull it out and say, you want to be the head of the school board. We have a video of you cheating, and we can show that you did. So it is fraught with danger?
Well, Rachel, it is one of those. Yeah, it's fraught. There is no easy A. Like, hey, it's better for you to go and take the test and get your C.
For sure. I mean, I would even say if you have ever used one of these to cheat, you should confess it now, because there is no good reason they couldn't come back and say, we're going to pull that out and defraud you. Right. So anyway, it's crazy town. There are so many levels of that I think are really interesting. And this is the thing where it's like, we have to teach students why not to cheat instead of trying to keep them from cheating, because they've got a lot of time on their hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, going after your friends, telling all your friends this is what's going on, that's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. All right. Well, that is the State of the Union. So thank you for joining me for that. I'm super excited about our guest today. So let's have Allison join. Hey, Allison.
Hello.
I'm so happy that you said you would come on Cap and Gown with me.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. This is great.
Yeah, for sure. So can you just to start, I want to talk about how you and I know each other, but can you just tell us what you are doing now? Like,
yes.
What work are you doing? Okay.
I work for Credo, and Credo is a company. It's a consulting company. We help colleges and universities improve their systems and leadership to make the experience better for students and to thrive. So that's who I work for. And I am the Associate Vice President of Strategy and Operations and Senior Consultant for Student Success, which basically just means I help make everything happen in the student success world and make sure that we're efficient and effective and we're helping campuses like we want to.
Yeah. So you have worked in higher education for about 20 years.
Yes.
A lot of different roles.
Yes.
You and I know each other originally because when you were the Dean of Student Care at Wheaton, you actually inherited us, right? So Melanie Humphreys I don't know if you've ever heard the story of how she picked us when she was at Wheaton, but I was in a little meeting with CCCU and I talked about what we did, and she came over and she's like, hey, I want that. And this is like at the very beginning of Ferris's life.
Oh gosh.
And I said, okay, well, I can do as many demos as you need. And like, if you want to, get the budget. And she was like, didn't you hear me? I want that. And I was like, it was the easiest sale we ever did. And I was like, okay. And then I went home and then she was like, send me the purchase order for it. So
wow, that's so cool.
Really easy sale.
Yeah.
So then you came after her, you inherited us. So we got to work together in that capacity.
Yes. About a year later after she had connected with you. So the college had it for about a year and then I came.
And you really grew it and used it as a vital tool in all of the work that you were doing.
Yeah.
And then you left Wheaton and then you went to Credo, and we have a partnership with Credo. So it was so much fun to be able to be in the same room together again.
It was so great. Yes. Yeah. You've heard me say that when I was in higher ed, I was like, if I could ever work anywhere else, I love Credos. Of course, I didn't know about Credo at that time, but I loved what you do. And it was really inspiring. So,
well, it has been such a great partnership since then, and really respect you and all of the work that you've done. So let me just say a couple of things. First of all, your undergraduate degree is in music. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
And do you still use that at all?
I do. Yeah. My musical time in college, I studied piano performance for the most part. I ended up with a Bachelor of Music and music and piano degree. But I really, really loved classical music, but then started getting into more kind of bandish type of things. So now I do play in a rock band.
You do?
I do. I play the keyboard and sing, and sometimes the accordion, and I play the guitar and electric guitar too on my own, but not in the band. I'm not quite good enough to play in the band.
So fun. So in a month, how many times are you playing?
Well, right now we're a little bit slow. It's not really gig season right now, but we're hoping to, when the weather gets better, get more gigs. But right now it's mainly practicing. So 1 or 2 times a month I practice.
Nice. So, that's super fun. It's always nice when you have kind of those first loves that you evolved into something else, but being able to still be like, hey, I want to be tied to that. Right.
Yeah. But I have to say, Rachel, I don't think you know this.
Oh,
I played a song on General Hospital.
You did? Oh my gosh, how did that happen?
When I lived in the Los Angeles area for like 11 years, I did some studio musician work when I was out there, and Disney had purchased General Hospital or ABC or something like that, and so they wanted to use a song from Dumbo on a General Hospital episode because it was going to be free because they own the copyright now because it was a Disney song. Yeah. And they said, but we need to redo it. We can't play it like we played it in the movie. So like we need musicians to play this song from the movie Dumbo. So I went to the director's house and the musical director for General Hospital went to his home and he said, here, play this. And I did, and I got a check and I left.
That's amazing. Hey, that's a good 2 truths and a lie.
Yes.
Like, just keep that one in your back pocket. Although now we've told everyone. So now I know. Need a different one. Okay, a couple more things about you. So we I didn't know this about you. Your Myers-Briggs is INFJ, mine is INFP.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, which means we're good on a team because you have the plan, but then when it goes awry, I'm like, okay, here's what we're gonna do instead.
You think expansively. I'm like, closure. Let's get this done.
Let's not decide. You're like, let's. Why don't we? Why
now,
don't we?
Right now. Yes.
Also, I had the pleasure this week of reading your dissertation.
Oh my goodness.
And listen, what I think is so delightful about it. So the title is The Ecology of White Anti-Racism, Administrators and Racial Justice in Christian Higher Education.
Yes.
That's a whole nother show. So you're going to have to come back so that we can talk about all of those things.
Yes.
But what I loved most about it, because I know that you are a visual thinker, you are a workflow, you're like, Matt said, I've never met anyone who loves a whiteboard more than I do, except for Allison. You love the whiteboard. So I was thinking about the conceptual map that you have in here, which is all about, so it's like the ocean, right? And then you have drawn out these 6 things. And when I read that, I was like, okay, Allison for sure wrote this. I would recognize it.
I didn't use any kind of
anywhere. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, obviously a heart for equity, diversity, inclusion. You have done that work on campuses. And so that's kind of the heart of a lot of the things that you're doing as you're working with schools.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, your undergraduate work. You were at Hope College.
Yes, that's where I went as a student.
Okay, and what was your experience as a college student?
Yeah, I had a really good experience along with some challenges. You know, like I would imagine a lot of people have similar experiences, hopefully good. And also it's hard to go 4 years in life without some challenges. So and college, you know, all the transitions that come in college just create those as well. So I would say I had a great experience from the standpoint of my involvement. I was in music, as I said, but also an athlete. So I had these 2 separate senses of identity connected to the institution and that sense of belonging. Like I have a place here and I belong here, which was really helpful.
Yeah.
And then when I did hit some pretty challenging times, to be honest, my school responded really well and helped me. And that was back a long time ago. I won't say how long ago. A while ago.
Yeah.
They really had systems and structures in place to help.
It's really interesting to me that you can have both. So I talked a lot last week about I had a terrible experience as an undergraduate student and my college did a really terrible job. But coming at that from both sides, right? To be able to say, I think about what they could have done differently. And then for you to be able to say, like, I think about what they did and how we can put that in place in other campuses, I think is super important.
Yeah.
We cannot leave the subject of Hope College without talking about, first of all, the poll, which when can you describe what the poll is? And then I will be exuberant about it.
Absolutely. The poll is a tug of war that is the people participate over a body of water. I should know what it is, but I don't. Over a body of water. And it's the even year, and by years by graduation, the even year against the odd year in freshman, sophomore. And they do extensive personal training for many months at the start of school. And it's men and women together, women mostly kind of really supporting and actually helping to direct and navigate some of it. I might be getting some of these details wrong, and then them building trenches. And I remember walking around campus and in the fall seeing all these people training with this gear on for a tug of war.
And the rope is literally this big. Yeah. And you said you couldn't participate because you're an athlete. And it's the same kind of thing, right? Where it's like, hey, we have practice every day. We're going to, there's a video of it. And Matt and I watched with rapt attention. I was like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And you were telling me that you told one of your friends about it. And he was like, that's dumb. Right?
Yes. I hope he watches this. I might have to send this episode to him. He went to a very prestigious school associated with our military, which is a very important school in the history of our country. I won't name what it is. And he was saying, oh yeah, so I said, this is one of the most important or, big time traditions in higher education. And he just kind of laughed at me. And he said, so my school worked at saving our country and defending our freedom, and yours did a tug of war. So we were at a restaurant and I started Googling it, like top traditions.
Yeah.
Hope College's tradition was higher than his.
I believe it. It is so incredible. We cannot do it justice, but you guys have to go find the video and it's incredible. And it's encouraging, and there's tears and blood and sweat and it's incredible.
It is really incredible. It's wonderful.
It is my second favorite thing about Hope College. My first favorite is their new president, Matt Scoggins, who I told you is doing incredible things in terms of not charging for tuition. His model, I think, is so amazing. And I would not be surprised if we don't see it replicated in other schools.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We could do a whole show on that as well. In fact, I think Braden's trying to get Matt on. So if you know him,
okay,
tell him to return our call. Okay.
Terrific.
All right. So tell me what inspired you to be in the space of higher education.
Yeah, I've heard this a lot when I talk to people when they answer this question. And it was the people I worked with, the people I reported to, the people who inspired me in higher education. That's the short answer. A little bit longer answer is when I was in full-time church ministry right out of undergrad. And then I wanted to go to seminary to continue that and maybe go into higher ed, or stay in church ministry. And when I was working at that institution, I wanted to get tuition remission. So if I was a full-time employee, I got tuition remission as a graduate student. So I did that and started working in higher education. And it was that process of working in higher ed and seeing specifically my dean of students, who I was working for most of the time, a couple different deans. And I just saw this work and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to do this. So I'm going to finish this degree and then probably eventually go on to get my PhD in order to go to higher levels of leadership in higher education. And that really inspired me, just seeing the work that they did with students.
So I'm curious for you, I mean, was what you liked about that working with students, or was it the policies and procedures and setting things up so that students could be successful? What resonated most with you about it?
I think probably primarily at the beginning with students. It was seeing, I would have experiences with students when I would have to sit with them in really difficult times in the work that I was doing there at that school and listen, help them problem solve, kind of help them navigate and find their way and get to a better place. And it was really that process. And I saw my dean of students doing that too. Yeah. And I thought, wow, if I could do this full time, that's what I would want to do. So that's what drew me. But honestly, now you know a little bit more about me. And I really do love systems and structures and operations and strategies. And that is also very motivating to me now in the work I do, for sure.
There's something about you get to a place where you're like, maybe I don't resonate as well with students anymore.
Yeah.
And how do I then equip other people to be able to do that work? And Allison, in the work that we're doing, I say so often, half of what we do is just encouragement of people who are in those roles. It is just such hard work. It is often undervalued. It is not always seen. If you have not done that work, you don't understand the emotional and mental toll it takes. Yes. And so I feel like for the first 10 minutes of any call I have with a client, I'm just spending my time like, I see you, you're doing great. I know it's hard. There's just this encouragement piece that I think people really need.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
higher education.
Yes,
So when you were the dean of students, you were the dean of student care.
Yes,
right?
Dean of Student Care and Graduate Student Life at Wheaton.
Graduate.
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about that job?
You know, I loved both helping students, like I said before, kind of navigate some really difficult times. But probably what I loved the most was the staff I supervised and seeing them. They also had staff. So it was the first time in my career that I was supervising people who supervised people.
Yeah.
And I got to see how really critical that kind of leadership is.
Yeah.
That you're now not just responsible for these 4 or 5 direct reports, but I had 7. And then there were a total of maybe 50 underneath me. And so I was like, I really have an impact on all these people. So when I would see my staff succeed and do well, that was probably the most encouraging and uplifting part of my work. I just loved it. I love seeing them soar.
It is such a fun experience to see people evolve.
Oh,
and to know like this is a thing that they don't love, but I can pour into that and we can talk about that. And then when you see them do it and you're like, I feel so proud.
I did. I just absolutely loved it. And I was supervising areas that were kind of sticky and tricky. It was medical and mental health and disability services and graduate students and all the complexity that they have in their lives. Yeah. So there were very few things that I was doing that didn't seem kind of pretty serious kinds of situations. Yeah. And so supporting them and seeing them make great decisions and do well and help students was really rewarding.
So what would you say is the hardest part of that job?
I think the hardest thing are some of the stories I have that will always be embedded in my mind of the students who struggled. And, you know, a lot of them succeeded and did well, but not all happy endings at the time. And I don't know all of the endings, so they might be happy now. And that's what I hold on to hope for. But at the time, the hardest part was, you know, when we all would be all hands on deck helping a student. And then we just said, you know what, they just aren't going to make it here. And they're going to have to go. And we had to trust that they're going to a place that is going to be supportive, hopefully at home or in another institution. Yeah. But that was hard. It was hard to get that connected, you know, and then have to let that go.
It is really, really difficult, especially if you have a close-knit community. That then when you have a student who's been so surrounded by that community that then you have to say, I'm sorry, you have to go now. And it feels so unfair.
Yeah.
Because you're like, this is a great place for you. And we do have a lot of resources and there are a lot of people who are caring for you. And so that feeling of like, I'm sorry, you have to go away from us now is incredibly difficult.
It was. Yes.
But I think your reflection is exactly right. And then it's all about how you punctuate that, right? Like if you just put a period and we're like, and that was a failure versus they go and they continue to have a life and grow and, you know, so.
Yeah. And, you know, we probably all have these stories. I had a student who I actually ended not at my most recent institution, but another one where I had to end up expelling. And she recently reached out to me on a social media platform, and now we're friends. It's amazing, and we haven't connected a lot, but you know, just that gesture says, okay, there's something that was positive about her interaction with me at some point.
Yeah, I mean. It seems like it must be that you were fair and kind and gracious and careful, right? Because her reflection is that is a person that I want to be close to, and I don't have bad things to say about him, which is always really nice. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so as you think about a student perspective in higher education, because one of the reasons Credo and Ferris are such great partners is because we are always student-centered. We are always talking about how does the student experience what's happening on your campus. I know you guys have it set up the way you wanted, but it's not good for students. So we're going to have to break that down. We're going to have to do things differently, right? When you think about the student's experience on a campus today, what reflections do you have about their just kind of how they're moving through their college career these days?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about that, I think there are different categories of maybe what those challenges might be. One is most obviously all the things they're personally going through, and just those individual experiences that at that transition stage in life that are really hard. So those are a myriad of those. But as far as the institution itself, I think one of the biggest challenges, and this is where I have hope again that we can really improve these things, and I hear this all across the board from people, is just navigating the system of higher education, from applications to depositing, to accepting, to understanding now what do I need to do? What system am I logging into? How am I getting this aid? How do I fill out this form? I need that tax thing from this parent and I need that from them to finish it and then get it in time in order to make my decision and then set up that account. I mean, I could just keep going the whole time. It is just overwhelming. And so that part of it, thankfully, those things we can change. So that's great. There are other things we can't change in people's lives that they have challenges that they have. But I think that's a really difficult experience for students.
I totally agree with you. It has been a humbling experience for me I'm taking a class online through Canvas. Allison, trying to navigate a class through Canvas makes me crazy. And I don't think it's anybody's fault, except that it's confusing, right? And I don't know where to find this. And then I got to go here. And then my professor said it's there and it's not there. And now and so the idea of walking in a student's shoes through their day in all of those things that you just mentioned is such a helpful exercise, because you're like, yeah, and then you take this class online and the reflection is, no, you don't just take it online. You struggle through it and search and spend so much time trying to figure those things out.
Yeah.
You guys do so much work on clearance and first day ready stuff, just trying to get that straightened out on a campus.
Yeah, we really do. I mean, if you think about a student throughout a day, what they're consuming digitally and, in person, but also digitally through their social media accounts, their personal email, cell phones. And then every professor has a different way of setting their particular class, usually up on the learning management system. And then, we a lot of times get frustrated when we're like, well, we emailed the student and we never heard back. And it's just the amount of information that they're taking in can be overwhelming. And then you throw the financial challenges on top of that. I mean, that would maybe even be at the top of the list of the students' experiences, just the financial challenge and difficulty of higher ed right now. So but then you add on to that, the system to navigate that challenge is really complex and difficult for the students themselves and the parents and the family or other people who are helping them.
Yeah. It is really interesting when you're like, I'm a smart, competent person in a lot of places in my life. And when I look at this process, I have no idea what students are supposed to do. Right. Yeah. And then we're like, they should just figure that out. And it's like, that seems impossible.
It's so true.
Yeah. Okay. So in the Moving the Needle project, can you just orient us to what that is? And then I want to talk a little bit about kind of our partnership and how we work with schools in that. Can you tell me about Moving the Needle?
Yeah, I can give you an elevator speech maybe of whenever I meet someone and they say, what do you do? What does your company do? Usually how I describe it is as a whole, our company really wants to improve higher education through improving the strategic leadership and planning that's on campuses, their space, how that's used, and then the student experience and how we are improving the student experience so that the most amount of students can stay and they don't leave. And then when they're there, they thrive. Yeah. And that's just kind of, I think, a nutshell of what we do.
I think that part about students thriving is such an important element, right? Because the outcome of all of the work that you're doing on campus to align things and to educate and to do training is not just that we want students to get a degree, although 100% important, right, but it's also all of these other things about how are you growing and thriving in this place with these people. And that's the outcome measurement of success there.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. A student can walk across the stage at commencement, but we don't know if they've been thriving to the point that they will then thrive after they walk across that stage.
Yeah, that's exactly right. How we set you up for success?
Yeah,
it's to keep moving forward. So the value for a campus, let me talk about what I've seen in terms of the value, because I think for a lot of our listeners, there are all of these things bubbling around all of the time, but we're busy. We don't have time for this. I was just talking to somebody who I was like, tell me how you tell your story of success on your campus. And she's like, well, Rachel, I'm doing the work. I'm not talking about it. I don't have time to talk about it. I don't have time to assess it because there's a student in front of me all over the time. And that's what I'm doing. And I think about the value of moving the needle is you hold space on a campus to address big things that need to be changed and fixed. And it gives practitioners and leadership just some breathing room where you say, this is really important and this is what we're doing right now.
Yes.
And it is not we'll get to that later, or yes, we should address that. That would be a good thing for us to talk about, but I can't right now. It's actually in this room together. This is what we're addressing.
That's exactly right. That's a great way to say it, Rachel. And I would say there are many moments that when I'm working on projects with campuses that I always look back to that I love. But one moment is when this happens a lot. If I'm in a larger group of people, I'll say, can you raise your hand if you've ever been on a task force that you might label as the never-ending task force with a not completed or integrated report? So our goal is to meet and figure out what's wrong, write a report. We may or may not finish the report. Then we finish it, and then that's it.
Yeah, that's right. Which that happens all the time. So everyone's hand goes up, right? Because it's like, okay, well, there's the problem. And there is no then, okay, but what are we actually going to do about it?
That's exactly right.
And the difference between sort of acknowledging the problem and actually doing something is where so many of our schools fall short. And again, I think it's just because they have other stuff that they're doing.
That's right.
They're trying to work on other things. You sit with people on lots of different campuses and lots of different roles.
Yeah.
I know you've had this experience before where you walk in the room to a team and you know instantly like this is a healthy team or these people do not like each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wish I could figure out what the measurement is, but it is palpable. I mean, you just know when you walk into a room, like, okay, they like working together. This is going to go great. Or we've got some stuff that we've got to work out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that for sure.
So how's it going for higher education professionals in 2024?
You know, when I think of that question, I think if I had to sum up that whole question in one word, I would say overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I would say higher education professionals are overwhelmed.
Yep, I totally agree.
They are trying to, a lot of us talk about do more with less, but really in higher ed, that is really happening.
That's right.
Big time.
Well, because you have positions are not getting filled, right? So then you have you're wearing more and more hats. You're oftentimes under-resourced. Yeah. And let's just be honest, individually and personally exhausted.
Yeah.
And you have the turnover of people who know the work, who are leaving, and then people who stay then are trying to fill in the gaps of that. And Allison, we just have a whole new host of things that we are addressing with the students who are coming these days that's like has grown exponentially from when you and I went to school.
Absolutely. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier today and I haven't heard this anywhere, so I'm hoping I'm getting this math right, but it'll be 2037 I should say this. Until 2037, we will be getting students entering the higher education system who were their formal education was impacted by COVID. And that means kind of going all the way back to preschool.
Yeah.
Because if you miss a year of preschool, that also affects college, right? It affects your whole life.
This is why we have Head Start programs, because we know that that's true. Absolutely.
And this is the thing, though, is every class that comes in was at a different developmental stage when COVID happened.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can say, oh, now we've figured out the COVID challenge and now we just do that thing.
Yeah.
It's going to change every year, which probably doesn't sound very encouraging, but it's a validation, right? Of how faculty are trying to change their pedagogical approaches. Staff are trying to figure all this out. It is not easy.
It is so interesting to think about a social psychology lens where we are saying what this student missed because they didn't do third grade. So what they're behind on is this, right? What this student missed was their freshman year in high school. And so here's what they're behind on. I mean, just trying to think about life cycle and what gaps are we trying to plug in for our students.
Yeah. I have two daughters and they're 2 years apart. And I can see the differences between the years that they missed. And I'm thinking they're going to be in college hopefully someday. And when and if they are, they're going to have a different set of challenges from their previous educational experience.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons people are feeling so overwhelmed now is because we're in this gap between what happened and making sense of it. And this gap in the middle is just so much scrambling. It's not like we have a strategic approach or understanding, or this is what we're going to do and how we're going to address it for the next 20 years. Or we really are just in a place where we're trying to understand what is the thing that we should be doing.
Right. That's
to
right.
move forward. Right. And so there's not only the work and the more hats and all of that, but there's also just a lack of strategic direction around what should we be doing right now to set ourselves up and our students up to be successful.
I can't tell you how many campuses will ask us, so this is happening here. Is this what you're seeing across higher ed because of COVID? And we'll say, there is literally no rhyme or reason to what we're seeing. Everybody was impacted differently. And so now we're still trying to figure that out. And then you take, even without COVID, there are those challenges, but with that has just increased it.
Well, I think one of the really valuable things about what Credo is doing with Moving the Needle is the amount of resources that your schools are getting when they partner with you, because in student success, you can feel very isolated, especially in this time. And so you guys being able to say, actually, we are studying colleges and universities all over the United States, and we are understanding and gathering information and then turning that into resources so that people don't feel like they're alone and just like, does anyone know what's going on here, right?
That's true, Rachel. And the moving the needle, as you know, the needle refers to the needle of retention. And we want to say, when we work with an institution, our goal is to help them increase their retention. Of course, to have students thrive along the way, but also the retention does mean a bottom line that is helpful to the institution to then do the things that they really want to be able to do. Yeah. And they don't have to put on the back burner like they do so often.
Which I was thinking about retention today, because so often, especially for our smaller tuition-driven institutions, there is just this date on the census date. We either are going to thrive this year or we're not. And it all depends on admissions and whether or not they were able to get us the students that they needed to get us. And I remember when I worked at an institution just feeling super helpless because that's not a number I can affect. And on that day, we either have a party or we don't talk about it, right? These are the only two options. Like, we have balloons or we're not talking about it. It's not going great, right?
Right.
And the empowerment that practitioners on a campus have when you start talking about retention, which is no matter what admissions does, keep them. That is work you can do. And I love the idea of saying, if we can work out our systems, if we can be present with our students, if we can make them feel safe, if we can help them academically, you have a way to impact the health of this school. And it doesn't just have to be throw up your hands. And for these little schools, it's like, keep 2 more students.
I know. It's true. It's so true. You add up those numbers, you keep 4 or 5 more students. That is a significant thing that the institutions would lose if they didn't keep them.
Yeah.
And that's a huge benefit. And I think to that point, one of my colleagues, Sean McGreevy, had talked about one time, let's help our institutions understand that everyone on campus is a retention agent.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Everyone. And if you're walking down the hall, and this is what I'll say to this sometimes in training on campuses, in the first week of school, I know what it was like the first week of school. Yes, I definitely cared about the students. At the same time, I was stressed too, right. I was trying to get my job done and I was busy. But I say, if you're walking down the hall and you see a student kind of just doing this, go up to them.
Yeah.
You might not work anywhere near there.
Right.
Hey, are you new? Can I help you find something? Yeah. That can make the difference in a student's life. One small comment. Yeah, and if we all walk around saying like, retention is my job, I don't want that student who's lost to leave.
That's right.
So I'm going to help them.
I think about Matt and I were on a campus one time and we did the retention speech about, hey, this is empowering to you. And so it means that everybody is doing this work, right? And the woman who ran the bookstore was like, thank you so much for saying that, because I do see students with their families. I do see students when they come in to buy their books. And there are times where I'm like, that student is distressed. The book is super expensive. Like, there are all of these cues that I pick up on, and you giving me the language to say, you're allowed to talk to the student and say, how's it going? Is everything okay? Can I be helpful in some way?
Absolutely.
She just felt like that changes my job. I'm not selling books. Now I am a retention agent, right? That's what I'm doing. So I love that. We talk about collisions, right? Which is just, it's like the reason you park in that parking lot and walk across campus to your office, because the opportunity to just run into students and know their name and ask them those questions can be so powerful.
I have to do a little confession. There was one time when I was in a job and I was downstairs with my coworkers, and I said, I have to walk upstairs. I knew students would be up there. And this is what I said, because I was busy. I said, I don't think I want to walk up there right now because I might run into a student and have to talk to them. I literally said that. And we all stopped and everybody looked at me and I looked at them. I said, I did not just say that.
I'm going to go upstairs right now.
I'm going right now because I hear students. But I caught it. I was like, I am in my own world right now. I'm here because of those people I hear upstairs.
Yeah. Allison, it's such a good reminder that I have told this story before, but when I was moving, my family was moving. My husband and my daughter and I were moving, and I was in manager mode. So I'm like, I got the list and I got the stuff and I'm doing the stuff and I've got it, and I said to my daughter, hey, I am not going to look at you today. I'm really sorry. I'm in manager mode. So when you start to feel lonely, I want you to come over and just put your hand on my arm, and that will snap me out of it. And then I'll look at you and I'll be like, hi, precious child. But it's such a good example of like, you get in the place where you're overwhelmed and you're doing all of this stuff. And then you need to be like, oh, right, for the students.
Yes, this is why I'm here.
I need to see them a little bit so that I can appreciate them. Well, I think the work that you are doing, not just with your campuses, but I think just to empower all of the people who come in contact with you. Mm-hmm. I always appreciate your presence and your thoughtfulness and your quickness to perceive what is going on with the other person and be like, I mean, you are like, clear everything out of the way. What's happening? We got to talk about this. Like, what's going on?
That's funny.
And you are so fearless about it. There's not a person on our team that hasn't been touched by that. And I know you are giving that to Credo and your colleagues there and also to your campuses. So it is such a pleasure to have you in this space. And your voice and leadership, I think, are just incredible, making higher education better all around. So
thanks, Rachel. I so appreciate being here. It's such an honor. I mean, I'm a little bit in a daze that this is actually happening after 10 or 11 years of knowing each other.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And we have another episode next week where I'm going to have my friend James Weiser, who's the Dean of the Library at Abilene Christian University. He's going to join me. So thanks. Good to see you. Have a great day.
Bye.